Hello, moviegoers! Coming to you from the Warner Brothers branded water tower capital of the world, Burbank, California. This is Film versus Film. My name is Quinn Boys, and I am a film fan who is rapidly approaching having seen 24 movies in my lifetime. And I'm joined by my fellow cineast, Leonard Smith Jr., who once boycotted his favorite movie theater for 2 years because they were out of liquid butter.
And I'll do it again. Listen, Quinn and I are friends and improv teammates who work well together comedically, even though we're from different backgrounds. I think bagels in any form from anywhere are great. And
not true.
He probably puts sugar in his grits.
I don't know what grits are.
Our taste and consumption on films also differ. We will share, discuss, and most importantly, we will battle to see which movie is the winner.
That's right. It's exactly that serious. Leonard and I are here to discuss and debate our favorite and our least favorite childhood films, kind of pitting them against each other, cockfight style, to determine who knows movies the best. Each week we'll be answering a specific prompt that we give ourselves with a personal film favorite to find a winner. And we'll be keeping score all season long to see who wins, I guess, because if neither of us are working towards winning something, what really is the point?
It's more about who loses.
It's more about not losing. Last week we talked about comedy that shaped our humor at an impressionable age. And Leonard, you said next Friday. I said Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. But like Mike Myers in the 21st century, I stay winning. I'm up 1-0 in the season series. And it's not a big deal, but it's good. It feels good to be on.
It's kind of a big deal. But, it was just I chose, my film just really had no chance from the criteria that we set last week, but it's okay.
We're learning. This is only episode 2. We've got a new prompt and 2 new movies this week, both of which we've seen this time, I think. But before we get into the movies themselves, Leonard, why don't you tell us what the prompt is?
The prompt is the biggest disappointment. As in, what was the film that disappointed us the most?
Yeah, it's not necessarily worst.
What's that?
It's not necessarily worst, right? But
not necessarily the worst film, but the biggest disappointment to us personally. We're just going to try to explain our feelings and the situation we were in, and we'll decide which one was the biggest disappointment. My film, boy, oh boy, Talladega Nights. If you
Ballad
are
of Ricky Bobby.
What's that?
The Ballad of Ricky Bobby.
Oh, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby. I forgot about that part. Wow. Will Ferrell was like comedy god in the early 2000s. I was born in 86. At the time, I was about 19 years old. 2000 to 2005, going from SNL to Anchorman, Wedding Crashers.
Old school.
Elf. Will Ferrell could do no wrong. If he was in a movie, it was gold. It was comedy. It was laughs, and it felt like he was at his pinnacle. And Ricky Bobby was like, I thought we were gonna reach Mount Everest, the peak, and I was so ready.
I remember the hype for Talladega Nights, and the one sentence pitch just seemed like Will Ferrell NASCAR comedy. Just seemed like
you can't go wrong.
It's a fastball down the middle. He was gonna crush it. He'd just come off Anchorman with Adam McKay. So it's the same creative team. Anchorman was sort of this, I don't want to say it was a new brand of comedy, but it kind of perfectly captured that Will Ferrell comedy identity. So this was the follow-up to that. It's not a sequel, but it felt like the same,
I can't disagree with anything you said. It literally should have been a home run. It was obvious that it was going to be a great film, at least to me at the time. And Anchorman, I could have quoted that from beginning to end, probably from 2004 to about 2010. I watched that movie so many times, and I'm not a big rewatcher of films. And I literally bought the first tickets available opening night to see this film. Me and my best friend Stuart, we saw it 19 years old. And I'm like, man, I'm about to get high. This is going to be great. And fuck. I swear they had previews for this film 6 months before it came out. And it was on all the time. And the previews were hilarious. They were funny. But then I got to the movie and all of the funny parts from the previews were the only funny parts.
Yeah,
of the movie.
classic best parts of the movie are in the trailer. Kind of.
That's the most frustrating. That and a few other instances made it to where like if I really want to see a film, I refuse to watch trailers. I won't watch trailers unless it's like a great film, like a Christopher Nolan film. It's like, all right, I'm watching that trailer 100 times because I know there's going to be so much more in the film. But most films, I'm trying not to watch the trailer because they give away too much information.
Yeah,
and in this one, they gave away all the laughs.
They gave away the laughs. I'm trying. Did you saw Talladega in the theater?
Oh, I saw it in theaters, opening night.
Okay, so I remember seeing Anchorman in theaters. I was like 13, which is I think like right in the sweet spot of. I mean, Will Ferrell movies can apply to anybody, but I feel like when you're 13, Anchorman, it was just like right in the sweet spot. I remember seeing it in theaters, thinking it was like the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And yeah, it did. It kind of like, for a movie to be that rewatchable, it was like, I remember buying the DVD and just watching it like the first day I got the DVD and then just continuing to, yeah. And it's packed with so many jokes. You're still finding stuff when you rewatch it. Like the first watch is almost not the best one, which is like a good sign for comedy if it adds stuff on rewatches.
Talladega, I literally just think of lines from that film.
Talladega,
one line will make me laugh if I think about it in my head.
Just right now? What's a line?
I love laugh. Like anything that Steve Carell does in that movie is fucking hilarious.
So yeah, like what is it? Do you think about Talladega? Because I tend to agree with you. I remember seeing Talladega and also being like, oh, it's like everything is here, but it just isn't clicking the right way. And Will Ferrell made, obviously, I don't think Talladega is bad. We'll get into that. But like, there was something about it where it just felt like they just missed it.
And I don't know, because when I was in the theater, people were laughing. People were laughing a good bit. Me and my friend Stuart were not laughing. And we were like, we weren't going in there with like, went up there with high hopes. We were ready to laugh. And it just didn't happen. And I was very disappointed. There weren't nearly as many jokes, and like I can't say that I wasn't the crowd because I'm from the South. I love King of the Hill. Like I understand like the country humor or like the Southern like lowbrow humor. I still get that and enjoy that and like the dynamics of that situation, but I just didn't get it.
So you gave this movie to me to watch. It was your submission for biggest disappointment. I do have a question about that. So I'm from the East Coast. I grew up in New Jersey, suburb of New York City, and you grew up in Georgia. What is your relationship, if any, to NASCAR? Because I felt like for me when I saw it, and I was like, I don't really love that. Like it felt like it was making fun of it was like a white trash redneck kind of comedy. And I can certainly appreciate that, but I was also like, it seems like as much of the humor is kind of in that mold as it is making fun of it. You know, it's like making fun of it with that type of humor, and it's like NASCAR, and I don't really care about NASCAR. Do you have any connection to that? Like,
I growing up, I grew up in Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia. I did watch NASCAR somewhat growing up. I was a big Dale Earnhardt fan, The Intimidator.
Dale Earnhardt makes a cameo in this movie.
Like
right?
I literally cried when he died.
Oh, Junior makes a cameo. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, Junior
right.
makes a cameo, but like Dale Earnhardt, I think died in like 2001. So I don't know if that was a touchy thing. I don't think it was, but I had some like somewhat of a kind of following to NASCAR, but it didn't mean anything really to me, and it didn't hold any weight. So even knowing country people and like NASCAR fans somewhat, which I didn't know that many, I still didn't think. I think maybe they didn't have anybody who was truly like NASCAR or Southern people in the writing room or like involved.
Correct. I think
it was true. Like more of a care, like it was what they thought someone else would be.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of like it's easy jokes when you're making fun of like that type of, Southern white trash kind of thing.
I don't think Southern yokel.
I don't think the movie goes like that hard on it. I just think like the jokes are kind of expected. There's obviously I too remember when you picked this movie, I was like, this is perfect. I remember this being a big disappointment. I saw Talladega, I think twice in theaters because I saw it with a friend, and then I was also like a counselor in training at a summer camp. And this movie came out in like August, I think, of the whatever year it came out. And I remember seeing 2006, thank you. And I remember seeing it as a counselor in training, and like I don't remember the circumstance, but we were on our way back from some field trip, like some summer camp field trip, like where you get like all the kids on a bus and drive them out somewhere in Jersey. We probably went to like some arcade place or something, United Skates of America. And we were on our way back, and like something happened with the timing that like the buses needed to kind of stop and gas up or whatever. And we stopped at like a strip mall with a movie theater. I don't remember where this was, but I remember someone, and I was only a counselor in training, but someone's like, let's just take the kids. And these are like elementary school kids.
Oh God.
To see the new Will Ferrell movie.
Oh God.
And I remember thinking, I didn't have decision-making power, but I was kind of an authority figure as a counselor in training.
Did you guys get in trouble for this?
What?
Did you guys get in trouble for this?
I didn't get in trouble, but basically someone's like, yeah, let's just like have the kids see the movies. And I don't remember what else was out, but it was like, okay, kids, you can see movie A, or you can see Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby. And I was like, I want to see Ricky Bobby. So, because I hadn't seen it at this point. So it was like me and a bunch of like, I don't know, like 8 to 12-year-old kids, like just watching. And I was like, had to kind of make sure everyone was in their seats and had,
Yeah.
And I remember being like, oh, this was a mistake. Like a few, like the first scene in the movie, Ricky Bobby is he's birthed because his dad is driving way too fast down a highway road. He drives past the hospital. His wife is in the back seat. The baby's coming out.
Right on out.
And then he just does a hard stop. And then there's like, I think there's like a comic effect, like, and then he just is born. Like that, I remember right away just being like, oh, this was a mistake. So I don't know if that like hindered my enjoyment of it. I felt like I couldn't laugh as freely with a bunch of kids around me. But I watched it again. I hadn't seen it in over, I think like at least 10 years. And I kind of liked it. I don't think it's good. I think it's not as good as the other movies Will Ferrell movies that we've mentioned, but it's not bad. It takes a long time to get going. There's a lot of like easy laughs and stuff, but it was better than I remembered it. I was kind of surprised by that.
Okay. I haven't watched it in a long time. I did rewatch it, and I still remember being like, just being like, this, okay.
It can be fine and still be a disappointment. I mean, I think it's still a good pick. There's a lot of stuff that feels forced, like Anchorman, all that, I Love Lamp, all that stuff. It feels like it just happened organically on the set that day.
Which I feel like it kind of did. Like,
yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of stuff probably left on the cutting room floor from Anchorman.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And this movie felt like they were trying to recreate that working backwards, like shake and bake, and if you ain't first, you're last. Like it feels like it's giving you a lot of those things. Like here are the new catchphrases that you can use forever.
They got stuck on some jokes that they really liked.
Yeah.
Instead of just like improvising and creating something like fresh and original.
And I do think that kind of hurts the movie. Although there are those moments like Michael Clark Duncan is in this movie, and I forgot that, and he is amazing.
Like pit crew or whatever.
He's the head of the pit crew, and he's got the one line that I do think holds up from that movie, and we'll talk about that when we go into our 5 criteria by which to judge the film. But I feel like I got to shout out.
All right.
Don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby is still like a tremendous line. And he delivers it so forcefully when he's in the hospital and Will Ferrell thinks he's going to be paralyzed the rest of his life, but it's psychosomatic and he doesn't.
I would have looked that up. All right. We've talked a lot about my movie, which is, I feel like, probably makes sense because it was a big ass disappointment. But let's talk about your film.
All right, my film is also from the summer of 2006. A lot of disappointment in the summer of 2006. I think it is the superior disappointment film, at least it was for me. I chose Brett Ratner's X-Men: The Last Stand. That's the 3rd X-Men movie in the original X-Men trilogy.
I just got to say this. It's probably better than Bryan Singer's X3. Well, the film would have been better, probably, but
Bryan Singer. Getting aside the many problems with Bryan Singer, the first 2 X-Men movies, which he directed as movies, are great. I remember that seeing the first X-Men in theaters, which was from 2000. I remember being there with my dad and my brother and just being like, oh wow, because I grew up with the cartoon, and this was like. It was PG-13, but it was more adult. They didn't have the costumes. The there were a lot of great, like Patrick Stewart is great, Ian McKellen, Hugh Jackman. It was just a really good, kind of smart action movie. And this was obviously before the superhero boom, which like nowadays we have like 4 or 5 superhero movies a year. But it was like X-Men and Spider-Man, basically. Batman and Superman had movies, franchises, which had kind of wrapped up by the 90s. 2000 start, you get X-Men in 2000, Spider-Man in 2002, X2 in 2003, and it kind of felt like those were the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies and the Hugh Jackman X-Men movies. And I thought the X-Men movies were better. I don't know if that holds up, but at the time I was definitely much more into that. I thought X2 was incredible. You know, the third movie in a trilogy is like always the hardest to pull off, and I just remember being like, you know, X2 kind of ends on a cliffhanger. Jean Grey turns into the Phoenix and saves everybody at the end of the second movie, but it seems like she dies. X3 comes out. There's a hanging question if she's back. What's going to happen? Dark Phoenix, if you know the comics, it's a huge part in the X-Men history. So I was very excited for it, not knowing all the behind-the-scenes stuff. They lost their director. The script was a mess.
They lost 2 directors. There was another director before Brett Ratner, and then he dropped out.
It was a mess. Yeah, they kill off main, like, important characters kind of unnecessarily.
Because Bryan Singer went on to make The Last Superman.
Yeah.
He took everybody with him. He took, like, the composer with him. He took ho-ass Cyclops with him, Scott with him. He's, like, he literally just write him off because he goes to be in the
James Marsden, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I was a huge... Like, it's very funny that we both chose these films because this also was a big disappointment to me. This film, I grew up watching the X-Men, reading the comics, and it was like they put too much on their plate. I guess maybe Bryan Singer had a vision or something, but he had nothing to do with the third film. So it was like putting the whole Dark Phoenix into one film, and then they tried to make it about something. It was like they tried to make it like a civil rights thing.
Yeah.
But then it's like you can't do that and have the Dark Phoenix like story. So like
well, and there's also the whole thing about there's a cure, like you can get a shot and it like cures your mutant gene, which makes you just a normal human, which is like, what is it about comic book movies where it's like the first Batman movie, it's just Jack Nicholson is the Joker. And then the second Batman movie, Tim Burton was like, all right, we got Catwoman and we got Penguin. And then every other Batman movie was like, we need at least 2 villains, maybe 3,
and then a third,
and then we have like a whole other subplot, and Alicia Silverstone's in this one. Like, there's just way too much stuff going on every.
Also like in this one, they had like some like model who was hot at the time, like the Soundwave chick, like was in this movie, and like she literally doesn't say a single word in the whole movie because she's probably a terrible actress. She was like hot for like a year during like 2006. So I was like, hey, let's put her in this movie. And it's like, what? Why? What are you doing? Like,
and to say nothing about all the many, many personal issues with Brett Ratner, unlike Bryan Singer, he's sort of always been like a hack director, or maybe that's harsh, but like just not a very inspired choice. I mean, he kind of recreated the look and feel of the Bryan Singer movies. It doesn't feel like you're watching a movie in a different universe. It just feels like a much worse version of the 2 movies that came before.
Yeah, there's like literally there's like one fight. It's at the end.
Yeah, Magneto moves the Golden Gate Bridge to be a bridge to somewhere else. Like, he just moves the bridge, he uplifts the bridge. Like, 70-year-old Ian McKellen just raises both of his hands up midair, and then the bridge just pops up. And then it just kind of redirects it so it goes to a different island.
And then the woman locks her door.
Yeah.
Like, after he does all that, it's like, what?
It's got all the kind of like shit, like, I'm the Juggernaut bitch. Like, there's just all the bad decisions in this movie. They just double down. They're just like, it's the last one. They called it The Last Stand. This was like before you tried to make superhero franchises that go on forever. The movie just comes right out and says like, this is fucking it. All right. It's the last one.
Which I also thought was dumb. There's so much to talk about in the X-Men universe. Like, why are you trying to wrap it up in 3 movies? It makes like,
I don't know. Bryan Singer was out after 2. Like, yeah, everybody was like, "Oh, what are we doing? This is ridiculous." Like, it's such a different ballgame now.
They know what they were doing back then, and they didn't have a vision. They obviously didn't respect superhero movies at the time, but then they started realizing how much money they made, and they took them seriously. And thank you, Christopher Nolan. We all love you.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say before we move on, we should get into the criteria and kind of go point by point. But like, I don't think this is the worst X-Men movie. They made tons of worse X-Men movies since then, but
All right.
they
This
hadn't
movie was
yet.
very boring.
Yeah,
I just feel like following X 1 and 2.
exactly.
It had a lot to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
It was very boring. It honestly felt like a sci-fi movie because it was just like the plot was terrible. Like the storyline was terrible. The effects were cool. It was kind of funny. The first shot of the film is 20 years ago, and it's like it looks like a video game almost. But like back then, it was like, oh my god, look, it's Patrick Stewart and he's younger. Like it was like before they did the Star Wars, like bringing like dead people.
Oh, they
back
smooth out the wrinkles in the face and stuff,
yes,
right?
it's kind of creepy, and
Yeah.
it was like not necessary at all. But I guess they had to do it, and they needed to be the coolest. Like they just spent special effects on shit they didn't need to spend it on, and there wasn't very much fighting or like it was just I don't know. It was just disappointing all around to me.
What is it with the X-Men movies where like they always like show someone discovering their superhero their mutant abilities, and it's always like a weird masturbation metaphor. Like this movie has it introduces Angel, I think, or Archangel or whatever and it's just a kid in the bathroom, and his dad is like he's like, "Come on, son, you've been in there," and he's like, "Oh, I can't," and he's like trying to cut off his angel or something, but he's like standing shirtless in front of the mirror, and his dad's like, "What are you doing in there?" And he's
You've been in there for an hour.
He's like mutilating himself. It's very weird, but it's not like it's not played for laughs. It's not really played as horrific as it is. It's just like I don't know. They got to get out of the bathrooms in the X-Men movies. But let's go into our.
Also, I just want to say one thing though. 20% of the film is Rogue just like wanting to get rid of her power so she can, I guess, have sex.
Rogue, I think, deserves to get rid of her powers if she
her
wants
powers
to.
suck. I understand it.
It's tough for Rogue. Rogue is if anyone she touches with her bare skin, she poisons basically and almost kills. And every time she kisses her boyfriend, she almost murders him. So I'm not saying she should do it so she can kiss her boyfriend.
But they made a whole
I'm just saying,
storyline
I
of
get
him
it.
like following like or liking Shadow Cat or whatever.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Like
Ellen
it was like
Page.
it didn't need to take up as much time as it did in the film. But anyways, I digress.
No, it's true. All right, so let's get into it a little bit more. We broke it down into 5 criteria, which will help us determine which is the more disappointing film. I'll just go through the first 5 off the top, and we'll go one by one. But the first one is influence on pop culture. Second is how well does this hold up? The third, of course, is the most important category, was Samuel L. Jackson in this movie?
Oh.
Number 4, we'll talk about stats. Leonard, I think you have some stats prepared. We'll go over box office, Rotten Tomatoes, whatever. And then 5, which movie is worse, which I think is a different conversation than which movie is most disappointing, but that'll help kind of get to the heart of it. So influence on pop culture. Leonard, what do you think?
Man. If we're talking about influence on pop culture, I feel like Talladega Nights has some pretty big influence. The whole Mountain Dew. I mean, Mountain Dew has its own thing.
Yeah, it really broke Mountain Dew, this movie.
But like, yeah. I feel
the movie
like
is packed to the
really
gills with
introduced it to the
sponsors.
nation.
There's so much sponsorship in this movie, and I get that that's probably also kind of a joke on NASCAR, but it's also like, you're doing the damn thing. There's so many sponsors in this movie.
It is ridiculous. I feel like there are a few funny lines. It's nowhere near has the influence of Anchorman or like any of the other movies. I honestly can't really think of too many lines.
Don't
from
Put
it.
That Evil on Me, Ricky Bobby is probably like the...
Oh, if you're not first, you're last.
If you're not first, you're last. Don't Put That Evil on Me, Ricky Bobby. I feel like that's lived on as a GIF too. And this is a podcast that says GIF and not GIF. I don't know, unless Leonard, you disagree on that.
I'm a GIF person.
All right.
I only use GIF with my jelly.
There you go. But yeah, I think it's just not as memorable. I mean, do you remember Amy Adams is in this movie?
No. Was she his wife?
No, his wife is...
Oh, she's, what's his name's wife?
No, Amy Adams starts out as like his assistant, which doesn't really make sense. Like, I'm sure NASCAR drivers have people that work for them, but she just like, it's like Amy Adams in like glasses with her hair pulled back, and she's just like, oh, I'm helping. But it's like, why do you Doesn't really make sense why there's no character here. She
Doesn't he
just
eventually,
exists
fall in love with her or
to be
something?
his, once his wife leaves him to get with his best friend, played by John C. Reilly, who is amazing. I mean, Step Brothers is, I think, what he and Will Ferrell are remembered for. But this movie kind of broke John C. Reilly as a comedian, at least in Will Ferrell movies. And he's
that's what I was going
hilarious.
to say. Another thing about pop culture, it also broke. Damn, I'm forgetting his name right now.
Sacha Baron Cohen.
Sacha Baron Cohen.
I mean, yeah, he'd been doing
It was to
Ali
the
G, but
masses.
this was before Borat or same summer?
This is, I believe, before Borat.
I think it is before. And he plays a gay French Formula One driver who comes
And,
to NASCAR to challenge Ricky Bobby. He's the antagonist. I don't think
Ali G had a very cult following, and it wasn't
Yeah.
like
this was before. Yeah, I feel like before Borat, you could people knew about him, but nobody really knew the name Sacha Baron Cohen as like a household
Borat
name.
came out in 2006.
So this was a big summer for Sacha Baron Cohen.
Wow, yeah, it was a big year.
But it was filmed before Borat came out. So for all intents and purposes, I mean, they didn't know Borat was going to blow up.
They both were released. Okay. Oh, okay. So Borat was released after Talladega Nights.
Okay. So yeah, so it holds up. So Borat was on the horizon. It was on the immediate horizon, but it was not out. People didn't know to look for Sacha Baron Cohen. If you liked the Ali G show, then you'd know who he was, but he wasn't a household name.
But it was very smart for him to have like this big ass movie with Will Ferrell to come out 2 months before his.
Oh yeah, it was huge for him. It would have been huge for him. Had Borat not come out, this would have been like the biggest thing he had. Yeah.
And I wonder if like Borat coming out also kind of hurt Talladega Nights as far as like at the time, because like Borat was it in 2006.
Yeah, when it comes to Sacha Baron Cohen movies from 2006, you're going to talk about Borat.
I feel like Borat was like a huge, probably was one of the biggest influences on pop culture in 2006/2007.
Yes. This is actually the second podcast in a row we've referenced Borat in some way, and neither of us have picked that movie for any of the movies we're discussing, which I think talks to its. I think it speaks to its staying power. But yeah, I mean, Sacha Baron Cohen is in this movie. He's funny, but it's also like it's like this movie has a lot of different things, and part of what I mean, it's weird to complain about this in a comedy, but it's like an hour and 50 minutes, and it feels like it's 40 minutes before it actually starts. Like it's a lot of build up.
It's funny that you say that because that's how I felt about Last Stand. It's like an hour and 44 minutes,
It's only an hour and 44 minutes.
I believe so.
Talladega Nights is longer than the last. That's crazy. I think you might be right. I don't know.
No, I think it's 144 minutes. So not an hour and 40 minutes. Excuse me, an hour and 44 minutes is what I think it is.
I'm gonna look it up, but keep going.
But it just felt like the first 30-40 minutes of The Last Stand was pointless. It was just like, okay, nothing's really happening.
Well, they had to kill Cyclops.
And yeah, who's a hoe? Never liked Scott. But
is it weird? Does it say a lot about me that Cyclops was my favorite X-Men growing up?
Come on, Quinn.
I was like, why are these fucking movies so much about Wolverine? Let me see the guy with the laser eyes.
Okay, so speaking of, my favorite character was Gambit, who wasn't introduced until X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Which is the worst.
Probably
X-Men
the
movie.
worst film. And I know this because I've never seen it and I will never watch it.
You're on the nose, by the way. X-Men The Last Stand is an hour and 44 minutes.
Hour and 44 minutes. Okay. I just only remember that because I was like, my God, when is this film over? And I feel like we've talked about Ricky Bobby a lot more as far as pop culture because I don't think
There's
The
no
Last
pop
Stand
culture
has
imprint from
affected
The Last Stand.
pop culture in any way, shape, or form.
There's
Except for the Juggernaut, which they got.
I'm the Juggernaut bitch.
They got that from pop culture.
From pop culture. That was this weird thing where someone on YouTube, I don't know, I'm like explaining YouTube videos, but someone on YouTube took the old X-Men cartoon and dubbed it back when the time, like
They
in the
were
mid 2000s.
very ahead of their time.
That was like a big thing to do. And they just dubbed it, and someone's just going, "I'm the Juggernaut, bitch." Funniest thing in the world, apparently.
Funniest thing. I
funny
watched that video so many times. Those are the G.I. Joe. The
Yeah,
funnier, or was it E-Bombs that did it, or was it Funny or Not that did the G.I. Joe?
I think that would have been E-Bombs.
Okay, voiceovers.
But yeah, it was such a big like meme in a time before memes that they were like, let's definitely put this in the next X-Men movie. We need to. If we don't put "I'm the Juggernaut, bitch" in the next X-Men movie, how will we get the young kids to come?
Oh God! So I feel like The first one, Talladega Nights, wins.
Yeah, and we'll decide winning pop culture is a good thing or bad thing later. But I think we would both agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's like, no pun intended. I don't think Talladega is like a pop cultural juggernaut either. But I think it's
not at all. Neither one of these are.
Probably wins by default.
How well
more subjective.
do these films hold up?
How well do they hold up? All right. We haven't talked about X-Men as much. Leonard, you tell me.
I feel like X-Men honestly holds up because of the somewhat storyline that it does have. It's about like rights and like, which is always what X-Men has been about. It's like was based on the civil rights movement and African Americans and their plight of getting equal. And
kind of a combination of certainly like civil rights movement. Professor X and Magneto are like the Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. But like there's also a LGBTQ in there as well, with like kind of discovering your powers and discovering you're different and it kind of straddles both.
Exactly. So I feel it holds up in that way very well, fighting for rights, condemning the man and the government lying to you, the moral compass of like what is the right way to handle certain situations. The special effects, since they spent so much damn money on it back then, it actually still looks pretty good today, except for kind of that first scene. That whole house scene is cool as fuck, where like she rips the whole house up when she goes back to like her. She
turns Patrick Stewart into dust,
and she fucking kills Professor X. Like that scene is pretty dope. I can't lie about that. And the special effects look pretty good. So I feel like the film holds up, even though it's like very boring. But yeah,
being boring holds up. Being boring never goes out of style.
Because Talladega Nights has some of the jokes in there probably would not fly today.
Yeah, not maybe someone would maybe disagree, but like I feel like they, if you want to say they get away with it or not is maybe a separate discussion, but I feel like because of the kind of people that they're making fun of, a lot of the kind of like off-color jokes kind of get like umbrellaed under the idea of like, well, these people are dumb. There's not that much, like there's somewhere, when like he's running around on fire when he gets in his first accident, or he thinks he's on fire. He's not on fire. He's running around on the course in his underwear and he's like, save me, Tom Cruise. And like Tom Cruise is still a punchline a little bit, but that was like this movie feels very 2006. Like it's not like trying to be, it's definitely a relic of its time. Do the jokes hold up? There's a lot of like gay panic kind of throughout the movie, but again, and I'm not saying it works or anything, but I think that's like, it was intentional then as well, with the characters being these kind of like Southern, don't let me just denigrate the entire South, Leonard. I don't mean to, but you know what I mean? Like this kind of stereotypically Southern redneck, like we don't like, so the idea that Sacha Baron Cohen, a French gay race car driver, is coming and like bossing around or, winning and beating the American drivers, that's like an affront to them. But I think that was intentional then. Whether it's aged so well, I don't know, but there's not like anything that I watched that made me go like, oh, you would not do that today. You'd get, crucified or whatever. Like, I think it just,
and not necessarily that. It also just doesn't age well, as well as you said. It's very like stuck in its time. A lot of the jokes really aren't that funny today because it's more like relevant to the time and what was going on then. The jokes are kind of structured literally for that moment in time.
The product placement, weirdly, I mean, not to talk about the content of the comedy and the joke, like a lot of the product placement stuff, I was like, I guess you could say it felt ahead of its time, but it also is like, we don't really think about that as much in the same way anymore. Like we're so good at but like pop culture, it just like integrates stuff within movies and TV. Like if a character drinks a Coke, we don't think about it anymore. But this movie, like, I feel like, and again, it's a NASCAR movie, so there's a lot of sponsorship in NASCAR, but it still felt the need to call it out. Like one of the funnier things I thought was when there's that famous scene where Will Ferrell is giving grace, and he's giving grace to baby Jesus, and everyone's like, there's other forms of Jesus. So he's like, no, I like baby Jesus. And then at a point in the grace, he's like, and I am contractually obligated in every grace to mention Powerade. Powerade it is. And I was like, all right, that's funny. But like, so they were definitely in on the joke, but they also just had so much advertising. They felt like they kind of had to like acknowledge it, which I feel like today you just do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't So I mean, I think if we're gonna look at how well does it hold up is like what feels stuck in its era, I would say weirdly Talladega Nights feels more stuck in 2006, whereas X-Men is just it could be a bad movie from any time.
Exactly. It literally could be a bad movie from any time.
So I guess that means we give that to X-Men.
Yeah.
All right. Number 3, the most difficult one.
And I feel like maybe one of the most important.
Definitely the most important. Was Samuel L. Jackson in X-Men: The Last Stand, Leonard?
Unfortunately, he was not.
He would have helped
a lot
it.
more exciting.
If he was Professor X.
Oh my god. Listen, Magneto. Shut your motherfucking mouth.
If Samuel L. Jackson was Professor X, I love Patrick Stewart as Professor X, but this movie is bad, and I feel like it would have livened it up if for just no reason they just didn't acknowledge and Samuel L. Jackson was Professor X, because at some point in the movie he would just get up out of the wheelchair and start smacking. They'd be like, the character doesn't walk. And he'd be like, I'm using my force powers. And he would just...
I'm using the power of my brain to walk and to slap bitches. Like in the house scene where Jean has him and like he's like, I just feel like he'd just be like, bitch, calm down.
Yeah.
Listen, Jean.
It would be a classic...
It's me, Charles. It's me, Charles. Calm down, bitch.
I mean, if he's anyone in that movie, he is Professor X. I feel like only because it so doesn't work. I mean, I guess you could make him the Juggernaut. I don't know.
Or he could be Magneto.
Oh, Professor X as Magneto actually. Professor X as Magneto. Samuel L. Jackson as Magneto would be, because
Magneto has some great lines. In this.
He does.
I'm not that Magneto has some great lines. In
Ian
this
McKellen
film.
kills it as Magneto. That. Yeah, he's still quite good. There's
Ian
that
McKellen
scene.
does a great job.
It's that scene where they're like at like some underground meeting of like, displaced mutants who are angry, and they're talking about like how they're gonna round them all. If they register to get fixed, like that's how they find out. And then, we know that Magneto's character has been, as a boy, was in the Holocaust, which is always a heavy thing that these X-Men movies from the Bryan Singer versions kind of gave him. Maybe that's part of his backstory, I think, from the beginning, but like they ground it. And there's that point where they're like, they're gonna, this is the first ever, and then someone's saying like, no one's talking about locking us up, and then Magneto enters that scene, and Ian McKellen's like, no one ever talks about it, and it's just very like Gandalf kind of like commanding voice. I'm like, oh shit, he's like so much better than these movies.
Just like saying, hey, listen, you motherfuckers need to realize there's a bunch of snakes that come out of my hands. I'm a mutant that produces snakes.
Samuel L. Jackson just walking through the movie making his own powers up. He hasn't read the script.
I literally think Snakes on the Plane came out like at the same time as these films.
That's probably the reason he wasn't in it.
He realized how much money he could have made from these superhero films before he realized it. Like, think about all the films he would have been in. Like, he could have been in.
It's funny because he's Nick Fury now, but I feel like even then he would not have given it the gravitas that comic book fans expected from these movies. So he would have been like, I'm Magneto. Like, I don't think he would have like read the script or been thinking that hard about it. Who would Samuel L. Jackson? He's not in Talladega Nights, unfortunately.
Talladega Nights.
Who do you think he'd have been?
I feel like it'd be funny if he was like the black hip NASCAR driver that was winning instead of maybe a French gay NASCAR, like a French driver.
I think you could do the same outsider kind of thing if he's just a black, Samuel L. Jackson personality guy in NASCAR, which doesn't always accept those personalities. I don't know that much.
And I feel like it'd be funny as hell.
Yeah.
My Samuel L. Jackson impersonation is bad, and I just yell into the mic, so I'm going to stop doing it.
No, do it one more time.
But I mean, I could just see him like coming in and winning races and just like talking shit.
Yeah.
Because like the way Sasha talks shit is funny, and it's kind of like a sophisticated way of talking shit. Like he's way more sophisticated than them, so he like looks down on them. Mm-hmm. But like I feel like if Samuel L. was like a villain in this, he would just like win and like fuck his wife or something and just like laugh in his face and just like not give a fuck. Like
that would have been funny. Yeah, I think it would. If you Samuel L. Jackson in this movie, he's got to be the Sacha Baron Cohen character. It would have been funny, like for some reason casting him against type as John C. Reilly. I would not take John C. Reilly out of this movie, but John C. Reilly winds up, once Will Ferrell has his crash and fall from grace, he winds up, even though he's his best friend, sleeping with his wife and taking over his house.
The ghost,
And I feel like it's
that is funny. I can't lie.
There's
John
funny
C.
parts
Reilly
of
was
this movie.
very funny in this film. The ghost in the house thing was hilarious.
And I do think like it's a joke and it's funny that John C. Reilly has like taken Will Ferrell's life in his home. It makes a lot more sense if that character is played by Samuel L. Jackson, because I feel like Samuel L. Jackson would have no scruples of just going in and being like, yeah, it's mine now.
Exactly. I feel like that would be hilarious.
So that's a tie. I mean, he's not in either. But
I feel like he obviously makes both of these films so much better.
I would rather see him in X-Men, I think. So I guess we'll give it to X-Men. I don't know.
I would rather see him in Talladega Nights.
All right, we'll come back to it. Number 4, stats. Leonard, you had something prepared, take it.
So last week, it was our first episode. We were trying it out. And I feel like next Friday, unjustly and unfairly, kind of was lost because it really didn't have a chance standing up against Austin Powers' The Spy Who Shagged Me. So in this one, I'm going to make Quinn earn his points with his statistics by asking him some questions. All right. I don't know if Quinn prepared anything.
I did not.
But I did.
I did not know we were doing this.
I've got two different things. Actually, you know what? This isn't stats, but I'm still going to play this little game with you before we do.
I got some stats ready for after this. So yeah, go ahead. Hit me.
I want you to name the character that said these lines.
Okay.
I've got 6 and I've got 2 bonus. You already know one of them because we talked about it already. The first line. Who said this? My family tried to kill me, you pathetic meat sack.
My family tried to kill me, you pathetic meat sack. All right, so that's from X-Men.
This is from the
so
film
I know
X3,
what movie it's from.
The Last Stand.
Who would call someone a meat sack? Rebecca Romaine Stamos as Mystique.
You are correct.
Oh,
ding,
yeah.
Ding, 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 ding. All right, next one.
The best Mystique.
I don't have to explain myself, least of all to you.
Oh, that's so general. I don't have to explain myself, least of all to you. I'm going to say Cyclops says that to Wolverine.
And you're 1 for 2.
Damn. Who said it?
Professor X.
Professor X was saying that?
I know. That's why I chose.
That's a Samuel L. Jackson Professor X line.
Exactly. That does not seem like something Professor X would say at all.
This movie's
all right,
bad.
this next one, I feel like you're going to get humans and their guns.
Magneto. Because every time Magneto sees a gun, he's just like, you stupid bitches, I have metal power. And he always just like he flips his hand, and then they all...
He says it, but then he realizes that they're plastic. He's like, oh, you've gotten smarter.
Was that scene in the first one where he like puts the bullet into the guy's forehead? And he's like, I can't hold them all forever, Charles. I love that.
All right, I thought you were a diplomat.
These are not memorable lines, but I'm going to say... I thought you were... Does Wolverine say that?
Ding, 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 ding.
Really?
Yeah.
He said
To fucking Beast.
Okay. Kelsey Grammer plays
Kelsey
Beast
Grammer
in this
is
movie.
Beast.
That's actually good casting.
It actually is, but like the story also doesn't make sense because Beast and I mean, I guess I forgot about the way they set up the movies, but in the actual X-Men, Beast and Wolverine like know each other.
I remember being excited. I guess you could throw that on the pile of disappointments. I remember being excited for Beast being in the movie, and Kelsey Grammer is a good Beast.
Yeah,
but
he literally doesn't. He like jumps in, like he like has one action scene in the entire film.
I always liked in the cartoons, Beast would just be walking on the ceiling using his feet to like hang on to the like metal like tubes that like line the ceiling, and I'd be like, why do you have to do that? It's harder to do that. That's how you're introduced to him. Yeah,
he's upside down reading a magazine.
There's no reason to be upside down. I think you still get dizzy.
All right, I got 2 more, and then two bonus. Maybe you should go back to school.
Oh, okay. I think Iceman says that to Pyro when he like knocks him out when they have their ice versus fire fight.
It is in the Battle of Fire and Ice, but it is said
it's reversed
by Pyro.
But he didn't leave school. All right.
He said maybe you should go back to school, and then
he's like, I was just at school.
After he defeats him, Iceman or whoever the kid is says maybe you should have never left.
Oh shit. I thought he was gonna say school's out.
School's out, bitch. is destroyed. All right. Last one. Not everyone heals as fast as you, Logan.
That is Cyclops.
For sure.
Because he's my favorite character, and he only has 4 lines in this movie, and I remember all of them.
All right. And then this line is the opening line of the film. And I felt it very much so. I went back and I was like, oh my God, this is actually perfect. I still don't know why I'm here.
Magneto says it to Professor X because they're gonna meet Jean Grey.
Somebody remembers this movie very well.
It was big. Disappointments are as memorable as good movies.
That's a bonus point right there. And then, don't you know who I am?
Juggernaut, bitch.
I was gonna give you bonus points if you could say the line afterward.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna do. All right. I have to pull a couple now to see if you know.
Okay.
Just some trivia. How did I do? I got both of them. I only got one wrong.
You got both bonus, and you only missed 2. So you got 4 out of 6, and then with the bonus, you technically got 6 out of 6.
Okay. All right.
6 out of 8. I don't know what percentage that is. I can do it right now.
All right. I'm gonna throw some at you. I don't necessarily expect you to remember the character names.
Okay.
But if you can just tell me the actor or whatever, these are just some lines. I'm on IMDb. I'm just pulling them.
Gotcha.
Well, let me just quote the late, great Colonel Sanders, who said, "I'm too drunk to taste this chicken."
Okay, fuck. I'm going to say Ricky Bobby's dad.
Ricky Bobby himself. He says it to...
It would seem like it was so easy.
Sacha Baron Cohen.
Ricky Bobby says that?
Yeah, okay. He says that. He's trying to taunt Sacha Baron Cohen with a quote, and then he goes, "It doesn't make sense. What does that have to do?" This is not a quote question, but do you remember the names of Ricky Bobby's 2 children? And there's a bonus question after this.
Colt?
No, here, I'll give you a hint. I'm not going to accept that. I'll give you a hint. It's a TV show. It's referencing a TV show.
Okay. Is it the show where they slide on the car and it's the rebel car?
Good guess, but no. His children are named Walker and Texas Ranger, or TR for short.
What is it for short?
TR.
Oh,
Texas
my
Ranger.
God.
And there's a part. This is the bonus question. Maybe you can redeem yourself. They're arguing with Will Ferrell's then wife's father about how their children are terrible, and his wife goes, "If we'd wanted them to grow up to be sissies or whatever, we would have named them blank and blank." It's also based the TV show. So their names are Walker and Texas Ranger, and she goes, "If we'd wanted them to grow up sissies, we'd have named them
Ross and Rachel,
Dr. Quinn and Medicine Woman."
Yo, these are pretty good lines.
These are good.
I need to go back and watch this.
I think you need to watch it again.
Okay, I obviously don't remember the film because I have pushed it out of my mind.
I got one more for you, okay? If you can get this one. There's something I want to get off my chest. It's about that summer when you went away to community college. I got an offer to do Playgirl magazine, and I did it. I did a full spread for Playgirl magazine. I mean spread, man. I pulled my butt apart and stuff. I was totally nude. It was weird. I mean, you probably didn't hear about it because I went under the name of Mike Honcho, but I just wanted you to know that. If you can hear me, if it got into your brain somehow, that I spread my butt cheeks as
John
Mike
C.
Honcho.
Reilly when he's talking to him when he's in a coma.
Yeah, that's right.
I spread my butt cheeks. Oh, that's great.
All right, let's go into more traditional stats.
All right, yeah.
I can quote this movie. There are a lot of good quotes in Ricky Bobby. I just, for whatever reason. Anyway, X-Men: The Last Stand, Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter from critics. Where do you think it's at? Is it fresh or rotten?
Oh, I for sure am gonna guess that it is. I'm gonna guess it's rotten.
It's rotten. It's just rotten. 57%. Needs 60% to be
60%?
fresh.
Okay.
57%. I think this movie was critically kind of mixed, but I think it is remembered as being much worse because it is. But for whatever reason at the time, I don't think it was shat on that much. Because again, it still kind of looks and feels like the Bryan Singer movies, but it doesn't have the same quality. Ricky Bobby, 71% certified fresh.
Hey.
The audience score is higher too. But yeah, I mean, 71% is pretty good, especially for a comedy. Certainly for Will Ferrell comedies today, 71% is like great. But I think at the time, again, it's just like
I believe it was 71%. You know, I held it in such a high regard, and like just coming off the films he was coming off of, and the way they presented it, and and how much advertising they put into it, I just thought it was going to be better.
All right, we should get to wrapping up, but I've got a couple quotes. David Denby of The New Yorker said about X-Men The Last Stand, "What a come down after the weirdly beautiful things Singer and his technicians did in the first two movies." I would kind of agree with that. It's kind of,
And the okay, you know what? I'm going to ask you a quick question.
Okay.
X3 had extensive use of visual effects. How many different special effects companies did they use? A, 7, B, 9, C, 11, D, 13.
Oh, man. I don't know why they would have needed to use so many, so I'll say 11.
You're going to say 11? You are correct. It was the most expensive movie made at the time. X3 was the most expensive film made ever.
Well, that's probably why Philip French in The Guardian said, while the movie takes itself seriously, not to say solemnly, it's really an occasion for funny, frightening metamorphoses and spectacular effects. I think a lot of the positive reviews are talking about the effects being
just
good.
The way it looks.
Yeah.
How much money do you think it costs to create? A, 160, B, 210, C, 260, D, 310. These are all million.
Budget? That's budget?
That's just how much it costs to create. 160 million, 210
I feel
million.
like if it cost more than
million,
160 million in 2006, that would have been crazy. So 160?
$210 million.
To make X-Men 3? Damn.
I don't see it. I just don't understand. I'm like, damn, I guess that
Talladega Nights
Golden Gate Bridge scene cost a lot of money.
Talladega Nights did not cost $210 million, but they didn't have to move any bridges. Our friend Philip French in The Guardian said of Talladega Nights, it's an inane parody of triumphalist celebration of all-American sporting heroism, which feels like he's trying way too hard, but that is a negative review. But I think it's true. Like the movie is trying to criticize, it's like the Bush era America in 2006. There was a lot of like, I support the Stars and Stripes or get out, and I think it was kind of trying to be a send up of that. And it succeeds a little bit. That's kind of lost watching it now. Like I don't think about current politics really watching that movie now, but I do think it's parodying a certain type of like American sensibility.
Even though it kind of would make sense right now.
Yeah. I also don't know if it feels so much like a parody as much as it's sort of just like, this is the comedy we're making. Like it sometimes has trouble parodying it or just being what it is.
No.
All right. Do you have any more stats for me?
Although it was the most expensive movie at the time, it was only the 7th highest grossing film of 2006. How much did it make worldwide? A, 459 million, B, 491 million, C, 507 million, D, 528 million.
Really just cluttered these up right on together. If one of them was like 700 million, I'd be like, well, not that one. I feel like if a movie, what was the first
It cost 210.
459.
491, 507, 528.
I'm going to say, because I think if it was 491, you probably keep the movie out in theaters long enough to hit the 500 million mark.
Okay.
So I think it could be 459 because that's far enough away that you're like, all right. I'm going to say 507.
Or 507. Your intuition was right. It was 459.
459. Okay.
All right. So with all this information I just gave you,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it or not. When do you think this was released in 2006?
Just based on when these kinds of movies come out, I kind of remember still being in school. Like it was summer. It was a summer movie, but I remember still being in school, which means it would have probably been May or June. I'm going to say like in the month of May.
Okay. You were right. Can you guess the day?
I don't know. I can't guess the exact day, but I'm going to say like probably Labor Day weekend. So I'm going to say like May 24th.
Oh, man, you are killing it. It was probably Labor Day weekend, but it was May 26th.
That's my mom's birthday. Thank you, Brett Ratner, for
Happy
that
birthday,
gift.
Miss Boyes.
Okay, so I don't. What do we think? What
I don't know.
Stats?
That was fun, but
Talladega.
I feel like,
So X-Men had the box office. Talladega had the critics.
Yes.
I guess we can simplify it that way.
And I mean, I feel like we're in America and it's about cold hard cash.
Yeah, I'll give it to X-Men.
I'm gonna give it
The
to
worst
X-Men.
movie made more money. I mean, it had 2 better movies coming off of it, but still, I'll give that one to X-Men. Which leads us to 5, which would probably be a pretty quick conversation because we have been talking about it basically throughout this entire conversation. But which movie is worse, Leonard? What do you think?
You know what? I'm gonna have to go ahead and say that probably The Last Stand is worse.
Yeah, I think The Last Stand is worse. I would rather watch Talladega Nights 3 times before I'd have to rewatch The Last Stand.
Like, there are some jokes in there, and I haven't watched it in a long time, so maybe I might laugh more than I did in the past, and the fact that I don't care about it at all. I mean, America would differ because Talladega Nights only made $163 million, which I thought it was a really big blockbuster film, but apparently America liked X-Men better. But I'm gonna say X-Men was the worst movie. It just, the storyline is just really bad, and it's just rough because you literally have 2 films to compare it to.
It came out in a time where I would go to the movies and I liked any movie. Like, if people went through the trouble of making a movie and I was interested in the subject matter, there's a very small window that I'm going to come out of that movie and be like, that sucked. And I think maybe I convinced myself, like, while I was watching it, that it was like good enough. But it dawned on me pretty quickly that Last Stand sucked. And Talladega Nights, I remember being like, oh, bummer, it's not Anchorman. But I never I didn't hate it, you know? I was sort of just like, oh, that's not so much for me. Like, well, they finally have like a movie that doesn't quite hit the mark for me. Because like you said, I was right there with you. Will Ferrell could do no wrong at that time. So I think Talladega Nights, if it looks bad, it's only based on kind of just the home runs that he was hitting up until that point.
Yeah, I guess you do have movies also to compare to for Talladega Nights. But it's such a different movie. Like, X-Men is supposed to be like an action movie. There's not that much action in it. Mm-hmm. And you really love the X-Men classic like storyline. You basically kind of know everything that's going to happen, but then they kind of messed with it and it didn't follow the path that it was supposed to. And they kind of made it about something else. So I clearly think that X-Men is the worst movie.
I think X-Men is the worst movie too. I'm going to agree. I think X-Men won the majority of. Oh wait, no. Let's go back through. Let's be scientific about this. Pop culture, Talladega Nights.
Talladega Nights.
How well does it hold up? We said X-Men because
Yep.
Bland knows no era.
We both agree that Samuel L. Jackson would be in it. So that's 3 each.
Yeah.
Stats box office went to
X-Men.
Went to what?
X-Men.
Went to X-Men. And then shit.
Worst movie. What?
So we're tied up 4-4. This is going to be great because we always ask this question, and I feel like this might help the determination of who the winner is.
I think it's going to come down to it.
Would Michael Jordan enjoy either one of our films?
I don't think Michael Jordan's watching X-Men The Last Stand. I don't think he cares.
Fucking way Michael Jordan is watching X-Men.
Yeah.
No
Michael Jordan's a
fucking way.
Spider-Man guy. Michael Jordan was a Tobey Maguire Spider-Man guy. And
I
when
can
people
see
would
him
talk
doing
to him
that.
about
I honestly
X-Men.
can see that.
Yeah. People would talk to him about X-Men and be like, oh, well, Spider-Man movies are great. But, X-Men kind of has this sort of society and it's kind of like the civil rights allegory and stuff. And Michael Jordan's like, I don't give a shit. I like Spider-Man. I like him swinging from webs and saving Mary Jane and hooking up upside down. Spider-Man guy. I don't think MJ
I don't know.
even
Halle
sees
Berry is in this movie, so I feel like
oh, shit.
maybe Michael Jordan might want to watch it simply because of that. But
I think he just puts the DVD of Swordfish on if he wants to watch a Halle Berry.
Yes, I had that on VHS. I feel like he already has enough pressure in his life, and he doesn't want to sit through a boring ass shitty film.
Yeah.
So he's gonna smoke his cigar, drink his tequila,
Yeah.
and watch Ballad of Ricky Bobby.
I think he watches Ricky Bobby too. I think, like we've discussed, Michael Jordan appreciates winners. I don't think Michael Jordan talks to losers.
Yeah. And Ricky Bobby is the ultimate winner.
And it's a winner. He's got a Jordan-like drive to be the best. He kind of takes a little sojourn. Ricky Bobby's loss of confidence and inability to race is kind of like Michael Jordan's baseball period.
Exactly.
And Will Ferrell himself was a huge winner at the time, you know, and greatness attracts greatness. It's like two magnets kind of being pulled towards each other.
So it sounds like we have chosen a winner, and that winner is Ricky Bobby. Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby. Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
So we're saying it's the winner, which means it's the biggest disappointment because... God.
Oh, wait a second.
Because this is biggest disappointment. So you said that Ricky Bobby is the winner because we think it's better. We think MJ would rather see it. We don't think it's as bad. So I think what you're saying, Leonard,
Son of a bitch,
is that I am 2-0.
Oh my God, no!
And that X-Men The Last Stand is the worst movie and the bigger disappointment. Thank you very much. I agree with you. I happily take... The referee is holding up my arm.
You know what? You're right.
I'm offering a shake, but you won't even shake my hand because it just got bloodied so much. That was a tight 10 rounds. But I think I'm 2-0.
All right. That's it, guys.
It feels good. We don't have to go.
After 2 episodes.
It feels good.
After 2 episodes, we're ending this as soon as possible. Fuck this. I'm over.
Well, you can't end it. You have to. What's our prompt next week? Because I want to go 3-0, Leonard. I need to know what movie I'm picking.
All right, listen. I'm going to come up with a good film.
It would be a
that
first.
I remember from my nostalgic childhood or whatever and my memories. But the film we are choosing, the prompt for next week's episode, is road trip films.
Road trip films. So we pick which road trip movie starring that skinny guy.
So we're either watching Road Trip, we're either choosing Road Trip or Euro Trip.
So wait, we'll figure it out and we'll have more clarity on this before the next episode. But are we saying like best road trip movie or movie?
About a road trip, there could be a trip involved.
So it's open for debate.
It's open for debate.
So we can get creative with this.
Whatever we feel like is right for the prompt.
So best road trip movie could mean like Apocalypse Now.
Exactly.
Or it could mean, which we can't pick because we don't accept movies before 1984. That's well known. No. But theoretically. Or it could be, you're saying
like Lord of the
Road
Rings.
Trip.
It could be like a 4-hour movie or something.
Oh, Lord of the Rings is good.
Because I mean, if
I'm gonna make you watch all 3 Lord of the Rings movies, extended edition.
We're gonna have different criteria.
All right, best road trip movie next week. I am your humble winner, Quinn Boys, 2-0. 2 successful movie picks. I look forward to coming up with another good one. Thank you, Leonard, for kind of giving it to me.
I thought I was giving it to myself.
You did. You really did. This was fun, man.
All right.
I appreciate watching that movie again.
Really didn't appreciate watching mine.
Don't watch The Last Stand. Maybe
which
watch
I guess
Talladega
makes
Nights.
sense in my film loss.
If you've seen Talladega Nights but not recently and you're like, I remember it being okay, I would say maybe rewatch it. If you've seen X-Men Last Stand and we're like, that was bad, you were correct. You don't need to revisit it.
All right. Well, guys, this has been Film versus Film. Appreciate you guys listening.
Thanks for listening. We will see you at the cinema.